What is going on, guys? I'm back today to do something a little bit different. I thought I would talk about a topic today that I've been seeing going around TikTok and YouTube and Twitter and Instagram among the film community, where a survey was done recently asking people where they prefer to watch their movies. And the survey essentially said that 2/3 of Americans would rather watch movies at home on streaming services than go to the theater. And it opened up a really interesting dialogue because there's a lot of cinephiles and snobs who are saying that, mass majority of Americans that are going to ruin the movie going experience because people won't go to the theater anymore. And so theaters are going to go bankrupt and you'll never be able to watch movies in a theater again. There are people who are saying, why would you want to go to the theater when you can stream movies at home? And it's created this really interesting dialogue about the movie going experience and what the movie going experience is to each individual person. And I've read a lot of comments and I've seen a lot of people post, but I haven't really weighed in very much on it. And I thought it would be interesting today to just talk about it a little bit because I think it is a really interesting idea and something that I have conflicting feelings about. It's something that I feel like is a lot more complex than people give it credit for. So today I'm going to talk about that a little bit, and I would love to hear your thoughts and for you to kind of weigh in and tell me how you feel, because I think it is a really unique thing now that streaming has become such an enormous part of our day-to-day lives, and there's so many streaming services and people are subscribed to these, and the way that you can watch movies now is so much more easily accessible than it ever has been. And like I said, I feel like the big part of this conversation starts with a lot of really snobby cinephiles saying that, like the general populace is going to ruin the movie going experience, or that theaters are going to go out of business and people won't be able to watch movies anymore because no one wants to go to the theaters, or at least 2/3 of Americans are saying they don't want to go to the theaters. And as someone like myself, I went to film school and I love movies. I love going to the movie theater. I really enjoy experiencing film in its intended medium. For instance, recently, and I say this because it's such a recent movie, but Dune Part 2, I went to the Thursday night screening and I watched the IMAX show of it. And to see that movie in the format that it was intended to be watched on, with the sound that it was intended to have, was a remarkable experience. It was something that, you're never going to be able to experience that the same way at home. Your home TV or surround sound, unless you have a ton of money, you're never going to be able to replicate the sound or the visuals that you get at a movie theater, especially for a film on that scope. And so going to the theater and the magic of the movies is something that's really important to me. And I think, we live in a culture that's obsessed with technology and with being on your phone and with constantly checking what's going on in the world. And so when you're watching a movie at home, a lot of people are compelled to jump on their phone or do something different that pulls their attention away from watching the movie that's in front of them. And I think that becomes difficult because then you are not immersed in the screen. You are not paying attention to the filmmaker and giving the filmmaker 100% of your attention. And so that's the big positive for me going to the theater. But what I will say is, for a lot of people who argue that they enjoy streaming at home more, the movie going experience has become kind of miserable in a lot of facets. I have gone to a few screenings of movies this year, and I am an AMC A-list Stubs member, so I pay a membership fee to get to see 3 movies a week every week for a month. And it's amazing because if you go to like one IMAX movie, it pretty much pays for itself. And so you can see a ton of movies a month, which is amazing for someone like me who reviews movies and goes to the theater. I have been to 3 separate showtimes this year where I have seen people get in verbal altercations inside the theater. I've seen people fight. I've seen people throw drinks on one another. I have seen disruption like you cannot believe in the middle of a movie where you are paying insane prices to sit in a theater to watch a film in its intended screen, and you can't even pay attention to it because of the disruption that that is happening. I feel like post-COVID, the way people act in public spaces, there's such an entitlement to, I've spent my money on this thing, so I can act however I want. And it makes a lot of the experience miserable. I will say, when you go to watch a lot more indie or art house movies, you don't necessarily get that as often because the crowds are very different. Like, the movies I've had these issues in are often like bigger budget horror movies, or like the new release like Spider-Man movie, or things that are going to draw a larger audience in are the ones that I feel like I have the most problem with in the theater, with people being disruptive. I'm not someone who cares all that much if someone like looks over at someone and goes, man, that's funny, or something like quick like that. But when you have people screaming at each other or throwing things at each other, it really pulls you out. And so for families that are really struggling right now, especially where money is such a tight thing, of course people are going to say they want to watch movies at home more than they want to go to a theater, because if you pay all that money, set aside that time of your day to go to a place to dedicate your time to watch a film, and it's disrupted in that sort of a way, you've wasted your money and your time and your energy, where you can just be at home, and if something happens, you can pause a movie and go to the bathroom, or if your kids are like, cook me dinner or get me a snack or something, you can just hit pause and take care of the things that you have to take care of, rather than if something happens in a theater, you have to miss the movie. And so I can totally and completely understand why a majority of Americans would say that, not only for the price, but for all the other circumstances I just said. And I think it creates a very complex dynamic. But for people that are afraid that movie theaters are going to go out of business, I don't think that's something that'll ever happen, because you see like the amount of money Barbie made last year, the amount of money Oppenheimer made last year, or even the amount of money Dune Part 2 is making this year. People are still going to the theater, and I think there's also this love of cinema that people who are passionate about it will always keep some form of theater alive. I see a lot about the Alamo Drafthouse, which I am unfortunately not able to go to an Alamo Drafthouse because there aren't any in Ohio. I'm not near an Alamo Drafthouse, but I was able to go to one because one of my closest friends lives in Minnesota, and I was able to go to an Alamo Drafthouse with him when I went to go visit him, and it's an amazing experience. I really love going into a theater where they're checking your ticket stubs where you're sitting, they're making sure you're staying quiet. I will say I'm not the biggest fan of the food delivery in the theater. I don't mind people eating during a movie, but like the people walking in front of you, even at my AMC, it becomes incredibly distracting. I wish that would just get done during the trailers, and that people would not come in during the movie. It can be distracting. I know they try their best to stay out of your way, but that's something that pulls me out of it. But I think Alamo is doing a really great thing with that. I have an independent theater in Columbus called the Gateway Film Center that is a nonprofit that is really awesome about their screenings, and it's a very different environment that feels like film lovers coming together to watch movies comparatively to just going to your local AMC. And so I think for a lot of people that are afraid that movies are going to die out completely, I don't see that being the case. There are too many people that love the theater going experience for me to ever see it die. And I also think there's a lot of directors looking at like what Scorsese has done for physical media and preserving movies that could have been lost a long time ago. I think there will always be people in that space that will protect the theater going experience. And so I'm not ever worried about movies dying out completely. And so but I do find this conversation to be incredibly interesting, because every person has a different theater going experience. And for me, as I said, it's incredibly complex because I love having the experience of going to the movies, but I also hate being disrupted. And I hate being in a space where I'm paying money for something where it becomes miserable because people just don't know how to act in public. And it's complex, and I can see the feelings on both sides, and I don't think there's a definitive answer to either or, but it'll be interesting to see how it plays out in the next several years. And I'm really curious as to what you think about it. Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear the discussion and what you think about this thing, because I've been seeing it go around for a while now, and I just find it really interesting. As always, if you can like the video and subscribe to the channel, helps me out a lot and lets me know the type of content you're looking for. I'm always putting out new material and look forward to getting more out for you in the near future. And as always, everyone, thank you so much for watching, and have a great rest of your day.